Namaskar, my name is Poonam Gulalia. On behalf of Mahatma Gandhi National Council of Rural Education, we are bringing to you this video. It's on one essential aspect of working with organizations in the field. As student social workers, as field workers, as practicing professionals, we are all required to understand profiling of organizations. So today's video is on agency profiling or profiling of organizations in the field. Why are we discussing profiling as an essential component of fieldwork, and why do you think we need skills in effectively profiling organizations where we go for fieldwork? These two aspects need to be understood and appreciated when we are working in the field. With this introduction, I will take an example of one of our students who has made an attempt to profile a particular organization. The steps that the student has undertaken we will go through, and you as a learner will discuss and deliberate on this with your respective supervisors and your co-workers to understand how you can enhance this profile, how you can replicate this, or how you can work around it to create different profiles of organizations when required. So, beginning with the profile of the organization, it's essential to state that the context in which the student was placed for field work was an organization which worked with construction workers, and the profile prepared by the student begins with obviously an introduction, but it states that our country and our cities are growing at a rapid pace. By 2030, 50% of India will be urban. With this background statement, the profile of the organization is brought to light in due course, but the context is established initially by stating that urbanization accompanied by high levels of migration of laborers entails that an estimated workforce of construction workers in the year 2013 was 45 million, and it is predicted to rise to 76 million by 2022, which is the year gone by. The data has been used from the available resources, from the government websites, but it has been linked to the fact in this profile that poverty is predominantly a push factor driving migration, along with lack of land ownership, debts, and desire to supplement income. The background, the context is being set for why the profile of the agency is important in the work which the organization is undertaking with construction workers. Having written that, the additional statements being made are that the lives of the construction workers are characterized by insecurity of wages, it is informal workforce, the working conditions are not always conducive, and there is lack of access to welfare services. So, this is the assumptions which are being made and the data which has been gathered, which is the context and the background before the student has embarked on the profiling and while the student has embarked on profiling the organization and its work. The student was engaged in the field work with construction workers, visited the sites, saw young children managing their homes while their parents were away or one of their parents was away, older children looking after younger siblings, children also suffering from malnutrition or injury were also noticed. The student social worker noticed that there were some students who were malnourished, who were suffering from injury or illness. Why am I repeating this? Because observation skills are being clubbed with understanding the profiling of the organization. So, the skills that we think are very matter of fact or not necessarily the priority in our learning may be essential in other spaces. So, that is why this aspect is being highlighted, even though the bigger mandate is about profiling the organization. The report goes on to say that children do not have access to quality care and learning environments, and the dangerous construction site is the playground. This is the only organization working in that area with the children of construction workers. So, it is working in the vicinity of the construction sites, and one of the few NGOs which is working with minor children, which is an invisible target population, but also highlighting that safe spaces are required for these minor children because of the hazardous environment. The agency profile is required to go through a detail about the history of the organization, the geographical location of the organization, the structure and functioning of the organization. But I am not going into details of when the organization was established or registered, because yes, those are matter of fact things which you will definitely include when you profile the organization. I am coming to the approach of the organization which has been detailed by the student in terms of creating safe spaces for children, in terms of supporting their emotional, cognitive and physical development, in terms of the need for older children to be free from the burden of child care and child giving, in terms of providing guidance and support to parents on education, health care and nutrition, and to enable the communities and the capacity of the communities to provide comprehensive child care services, besides contributing to quality and qualified care by running a child care training program. So, these are the aspects which the student has narrated as the mandate of the organization with which the organization is functioning, by enlisting the health needs, the nutrition needs, the educational needs and the support needs. The student has also used this space to profile the work of the organization. So, when the profiling takes place, it also means that we relate the mission and the vision of the organization, the mandate of the organization, to the objectives with which it's running or planning or implementing its programs. There is a need to see the match or mismatch which is occurring and what efforts are being made by organizations to achieve the outcomes, the goals, the purpose with which it has been constituted. So, preparing an agency profile may seem as a very simple matter of fact task with given subheadings as I am mentioning, not only in terms of the structure and the functioning of the organization, the hierarchy in the organization, the stated objectives, the programs and projects which it is undertaken, the staffing pattern, but also in terms of the outputs, the outcomes, which is the deliverables which the organization is engaging with for the purpose of achieving its objectives. So, while profiling the organization within these headings, the student goes on to elaborate that the organization has developed innovative programs to build leadership and confidence among the community people. It has started child to child program, it has started buddy program, it has an exercise of sharing the skills of children from more affluent neighborhood schools. So, it has enabled an affluent school nearby to adopt these children, to enable them during the day as part of their voluntary work, as part of this socially conscious exercise, as part of the mandate of the affluent schools to engage with these children and to enable them to enhance their skills while their parents are away at work. So there are many aspects which an agency profile can enable us to do. It should also be seen clubbed with what we have called a community profile. So if organizations are working in a community, an organization profile has been prepared, it might need to be revisited, it might need to be redone, the structure may change over time, the hierarchy may change, some people may get promotions, the trustee may move on, the boards may change, the management council may change, the management may change. People may leave the organization and new job profiles may be created as well. So when we study the profile of organizations, we also need to study the profile of communities where we are working. In another video, we have discussed about community work and skill building, but community profiling as such needs to be discussed as a separate entity, as a separate requirement, not only for working with communities, but also for understanding it in the context of skill building of us as student social workers. So community profiling and agency profiling are two parallel processes. Sometimes students relegate this task to the later spaces of their fieldwork journey. But our recommendation and suggestion is to do it as an initial activity, to undertake an agency profiling as an initial activity, to relate it to the earlier profiling done by a senior student or by a co-worker, to undertake community profiling as a separate activity, not only to understand community work, but also to relate it to community mapping, to relate it to community organizing, to relate it to our role as a student social worker or as a community organizer. So I am trying to tell you multiple things in a larger context. We break it down for you to understand, but we also club it together and draw parallels so that you can understand them not only as separate entities, but as interlinkages required for your learning and for your professional growth. What are the other aspects is something that we need to keep in mind when profiling organizations. What are the aspects which may go unnoticed? What are the aspects which an organization may not be willing to reveal for confidentiality issues or because of sensitivity issues or because of the fact that you are not an employee of the organization? What and how will you learn through informal networks of spaces about the organization which may not be spelt out, which may not be written out, which may not be obvious? These are also spaces for learning and growing. So understanding and working around preparing an agency profile, revisiting it, discussing it with your supervisors and facilitators, sharing it with the organization with which you are working as a field worker, as a student social worker, getting their inputs on where they think that you have not done a complete task, getting their inputs on why it should not be just a matter of fact exercise. Why is it not just a factual experiment, a factual exercise? It is more than just a fact-finding experience. So you need to understand the need and the importance of working on an agency profile in the larger context of working with organizations, also in the larger context of documenting your work with organizations. Sometimes we write very peripheral information about organizations' work, but if we cull out material from their newsletters, from their annual reports, from their websites, say over a period of a decade or a period of 5 years which have gone by, study the progress, study the journey of these organizations, a different picture will emerge in terms of profiling organizations. It's also important to profile organizations because you will learn and you might have experienced that sometimes there are more than one or two organizations working in a particular geographical space. Sometimes there are more than 2 or 3 organizations working in a particular community setting. Are they working in parallel? Are they working at crossroads? Are they doing similar work? Are they complementing each other's work? How much of coordination is taking place among the organizations to deliver to the same set of people? Many aspects can be discussed and deliberated on once we prepare the profile of organizations in a comprehensive way, in a systematic way, in a scientific way. All these become essential, and it can also be an experimental research which you are conducting by profiling organizations and seeing the impact it is having on working with people in the communities. For this video, we would like to close here, and we do hope that in subsequent videos, when you will understand community profiling, when you will understand the relationship between profiling of organizations and their work, when you will understand the mandate of organizations' work through community profiling, through agency profiling, you will be able to compare and contrast the work of organizations in the field. You will be able to see similar organizations work across different parts of the country. You may find linkages in the work that you are doing and the work of other organizations. You may also find branches of a particular organization in different parts of the country. So there will be many aspects and many things which will open up once you do a basic profiling and once you engage with it to learn more about working in the field. We wish you all the best. We do hope that this video will be helpful for you and you will understand the value of profiling organizations and learning from that exercise. Thank you and all the best.